Welcome to day two of the fall 2024 Programming Fundamentals with C Sharp. I'm Jim Kaufman with Rankin Technical College, and I will be your instructor. So I sent out an email this morning, and here's the things we're going to cover today. We're going to design a web forms app, a simple web forms app. I created a document for this, and we're just going to go ahead and follow that. And then basically a lot of what we're going to do in developing this web format, it's a very simple one, but the things we're going to do in this is basically going to help with the written test. But I also created a study guide to help with the written test, and so we're going to go ahead and go through this written test as a class as well. Okay, and then after that, so our labs don't have this first lab here that we have for this week. It doesn't have window forms. It's basically console apps. So we're going to go through we're going to start out going through some programming basics, some essential C# concepts, and then from there we're going to go ahead and do the first console app. Okay. So you'll be getting, we're going to be making some progress and getting your assignments done this week. Okay. So first, and if you want to follow along, if you want to open up your email, because I have these different documents here, and you can follow along. Also, hopefully, hope everyone has their repository set up and also Visual Studio. That'd be beneficial. If you don't, you still need help with that, I can help you later. And for now, you can just watch it, and you can always come back and look at the video later. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and start out here. So this is the simple Windows format, and we're basically going to follow these directions here. I'm going to see if I can get both of this and Visual Studio in the same thing here. We're going to see if if I can get this all to fit on the same screen together. If not, we might have to flip back and forth. But so the first thing we're going to want to do is we come in here, kind of ignore all the stuff I have here because I have some other stuff. Yours probably, unless you've done something already, this is probably going to be empty for you. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to create a new project. Okay, and so we come down here, create a new project. And then for the windows, one thing you have to be very careful about, because there's sometimes redundant things here and it's kind of confusing, because like you can see that there's, like for a console app, you have this console app and then you have this console app down here. But if you look, here's the languages for this console app, right? Visual Basic. And these are actually platforms, but this is a Visual Basic app, right? For here, we have a console app for C#, right? Now, we're not going to do a console app right now, but I'm just showing you this. So just make sure whenever you create a console app, make sure that you got C# in here before you select that, okay? If you select this other one down here, it's not going to quite work for you, okay? So what we're going to come down here, so here you can see we got two different window form apps, right? We've got this one and this one. This one's Visual Basic, so we don't want to select this one. We want to select this one, okay? So you select that, click Next, and then we're going to come in here and we're going to grab, create a new project. Yeah, it's telling us what to do. So here's our name. So let's just grab that and put that in there. Now the next thing you want to do in here for location, you want to make sure that you go to your repository, where your repository is. And I put mine out here, under here. And so if you already have your repository configured, if you already done that and you have this. So I ended up creating a sandbox directory here. You know, you don't have to do it this way. What I'm doing is I'm just creating some area where I can kind of, you know, and it'd be helpful for you too, that you can kind of play around with different things. Okay. And if you want to check it in, if you want to commit it to GitHub, that's fine. It's probably best actually if you do, because if not, and I'll show you later when we use that GitHub desktop, anything you put in this directory is going to kind of show up if it's not checked in. So it's going to say, hey, you want to do something with that? And then it can kind of get confusing, and we'll discuss that later, okay? But so I have the sandbox, and then I also created a chapter 2 folder. You don't have to do it this way. Oh, and actually, let me delete this. Okay, so here's the folder I'm selecting, and this is within my repository, and I'm going to hit select folder. So it's going to put it right there. Okay, and then I'm going to place the solution and project in the same directory. So I'm just selecting that. So you're going to have your solution and your project in the same directory. Okay, and then you click next here. And so this is a little different, these steps, because I guess I used something older, but you know, so we're gonna choose our thing here. So you want to choose the .NET.80. I believe that's what you have if you downloaded the Visual Studio. You know, basic on, you know, when we set up our environment, right? Okay, so then we did that, and so we can see this is our Windows format. We see the C# here, right? And there's our framework, and so we're going to hit create. Okay, so then we have this. Let me see if I can get this to kind of play nice here. Okay. Probably going to have to kind of slide this up and down a little bit. Yeah, I don't like how that worked. Let's see what I can do here on that. So I'll probably slide this up and down would be my best bet here, I think. So basically it's okay. So we got this. So we're going to go view toolbox, go to view toolbox. Actually we already have that here, don't we? So we already have our toolbox. So if you don't have your toolbox, go up here and view. Let's just make this big. I don't want to do this to you guys. if you can follow along, if you have those. So let's go ahead to go, you know, view toolbox in case it's not there, right? So let's just kind of review on this. So if, you know, if it's not there, you need to go up here and go to view toolbox to bring that up. And then there's this little pin here. So if it's over here, if you have that pin unselected, it's going to put it over there. If you want to mount this to this location, then you just go ahead and select that pin. So you have the toolbox, and then you have your solution explorer, and you've got your properties, right? And it's the same thing with all of these as well. You know, you'll see, I know you can't probably see this, but there's a little pin here. So basically, as long as you pin this, then it'll mount it right there, okay? And especially for these window forms apps, you know, it's best so you have the toolbox and everything there, right? So if we go back to our directions here, we've got our toolbox. So we're going to add controls to the form. So we're going to go look for a text box here, okay? And I'm going to drag that over here. Make it a little bigger. Okay. And then when you click on this over in your properties window, you can see it says text box 1, right? So what we're going to do though, we're going to kind of follow, I think it's a good idea to name your things in a certain way. So what we're going to do, and this is preferred. So like for a text box, you do TXT. You start it out with TXT. For a label, start out LBL. And for a button, start it at BTN, right? And you start with the lowercase, right? So we got lowercase TXT, right? Like that. And so we're calling this box input, right? So we've got that. And now we're going to drag a label over there. Drop it right there. And, oh, didn't mean to do that. And then for that label, we're going to go ahead and do the name property. And actually, I do want to fix this because I did double click that. And if you remember, when you do that double click, you really should come in here and get rid of this like this. Because I accidentally did that. Okay, so we just select it once. Okay, and then we come up here. Oh, we got to get back to the regular properties. So we got a name here. And for this one, we're going to set the name for the property to the LBL enter text. And so we're going to do that there. And then we're going to come down. And another thing here we can do while we're here. So we can go ahead and change this font maybe. And, it's obviously going to be easier for you guys to see as well on the screen here. So I'm just going to do Arial. And I'm going to make this about 18. So it's nice and big, a little bigger. And then we're going to go ahead and we're going to go down to text here. And then for the text here, we're going to have enter text and a colon. And then you see it came up there. Good. And then we want to drag a button over there. Now we have our button. And for our button, we're going to call this BTN submit. And then a text property. As you can see here, we're doing something where we've got this ampersand before submit, right? This ampersand. Let me grab this and put it over there. And so what this ampersand does, we're not going to see this because we've got to make this button a little bigger here. And also it would be a good idea to change the font on this as well. Change this to Arial. Now there is a way, and I'll actually show you a way that we can actually kind of do this all in one time. You can actually select all of these and do them all at one time. But we'll make this about 18 too. There we go. But you can see there's a little line. It might be hard for you to see. There's a little line under the capital S there, right? And that's what putting that ampersand in that place did. Okay, so let me select this again. We've got the ampersand. So let's just say, let's just move this just so you can see this. And let's say we just put it here instead. And if we save that, it'd end up put it under the U there. Okay, and what this does is actually this creates an access key so that you can hit the Alt key when we're running this, right? We're just in the design mode right now. But when we're running this, if you click the Alt key and like here, let's put it back to where we had it, right? Okay. So now we're back to under the S. So when we do run this, if we hit the Alt key and the S key, right? If we hold down the Alt key and hit the S key, it will actually submit the form. All right. So let's see, we've done that. We've got our button. Let's set our control properties. We have a text box set to read only. So we're just going to set this and then unset this. And the reason I'm showing you this is just because it's kind of one of the questions on the test. So I'm just going to show you how to set this for read only. So we're going to go back here and select this. And this is another one we can go ahead and, so for the font size here, actually one thing you could do is grab all this stuff and you can change the font for all of them all at one time. Okay. So just want to show you can do it individually or you can do it all together. So we're going to do Arial 18. Okay. And so that'll change it for all of them. Okay. And let's go back here and select this text box. And we go this text box. What we're going to want to do here is going to go down to read only. And it says false. Let's change that to true. Now, there are two ways to do it. You can select it from the drop down, or you can just double click in this area right here. If you double click, it'll go false to true. All right. So just wanted to let you see this. We're going to set it back to false, but this is how you set something to read only. And there might be cases where you're going to want to do this. You know, you might want to display an answer. You might have like 4 or 5 text boxes, and then you know things are added maybe, and then you want to display the sum of all those numbers, and then you'd have that as read only because you don't want people putting in that field because it's for a sum of all the other fields, right? So that's one reason. So we're going to go ahead and change this back to false now. So that's there. Okay, so read only, and then we're going to set the accept button. So the way to get to this form is basically, so whenever you click on these, you can always notice in the properties here, whenever you click on something, it's basically that specific control, right? How that changes over here depending on what you select. To change the form, you just need to select outside of that. Oops, sorry, I did that again. So you have to select outside of that, okay? And so then on here, there's going to be a button submit. And yeah, the accept button. So you have to make sure it's the same name, button submit. No, we're doing the accept button, sorry. And actually, if you use the drop down, this will list them. So obviously, if you had multiple buttons on your list, it'll be in this drop down, right? So that's that. Okay, and then what we're going to do from here, we're going to set the form name. So here it's got form 1. So up here you see the form 1 on the designer. Generally you don't want to do that. You want to call it kind of what it is. And in our case, it's this simple web app, right? We put that, and then what did I do wrong? Not sure what happened there. Okay. Property value is not valid. Oh, that's a name. Did that wrong, didn't I? Sorry. Down here for text. So always remember that, and I should have known that. I mean, I do know that. So whenever you text, you can have spaces and stuff like that. When you ever have a name, right, you have to have the correct name here, right? And actually, we probably should have a name that's descriptive of what this is. And there's kind of there's a lot of different reasons you really do want those descriptive names, because sometimes you can have, especially when you got multiple labels. So sometimes when if you just drag a label over there or a text box, it's gonna put label 1, label 2, label 3, which may be fine for you, but what happens is sometimes you rearrange things. So now all of a sudden label 1 is actually the 4th one, and so you could you kind of can get things messed up and you get confused. So it's always best to kind of, make sure you identify them with something that's relevant to that field, right? To that thing you have right there, that control, right? Okay, so we did that, and then so the access keys. So we have button submit here for button submit, which is here. We come down here and we go. Yep. Yeah, we were already saying that. Okay, we already know that. Tab order, view tab order. I think I did kind of skip something here though, didn't I? I did kind of want to go over a little bit. So we do have this tab index, okay? And so this tab index is when, when this application is running, it's gonna, especially when you got multiple, this is a little simple little thing, simple little form. But when you have a big form, you're gonna want to have these tabs to tab through your different, your different fields, right? So in this case, we've got a tab index of 2 for this one. If we go on this one, we've got a tab index of 0. And over here on this one, we have a tab index of 1. And generally, a lot of times, you really don't want to tab on necessarily on your labels, but you want to make sure that you're tabbing here and tabbing there, right? So what we could do is we could set this to 0. We'll set this 1 and this to 2. So let's click this. Let's set this one to a 0. Let's set this to a 1. And that's already a 2. Okay. So this is one way to do your tab index, but there's actually another way to do that as well. And then you do that by going up to this view and going down to tab order, and it's going to show you the different ones. Okay. It's just kind of a preference type thing. Obviously, this is a lot easier, right? So obviously, if you click on this, you can change the order of it. So basically, when you do run it, if you have a tab order like this, it's going to go to this 1 and then to the 2, right? But in our case, it makes more sense to have that like that and that like that, okay? And then when you're done doing this, these things are still here. You want to get rid of that. So you just come back down here, view, and tab order again, and that's gone, okay? So now what we're wanting to do, and I think one thing I did want to fix, I think we're fine there. Okay. So I'm going to click the submit button here. And then what we want to do is we're going to double click on this. And then double click on this, it's going to put an on click event within our code here. And it's going to bring up our code box, right? So we have this button on click here, right? So what we're going to want to what we'll go ahead and do here is on our document, we've got, let's display the text message for that. You can copy that. And then this is within right here. You want to put that. This is button submit click. On the on click event, we want to show this message box, okay? And then you want to just hit Control S to save all this. And there we go. We saved it. Okay. And let's see. And now I guess we're ready to run our application. So click Start. So basically, you come up here. You see the little green arrow here. You click on this. This will, and behind the scenes, this is actually compiling it. It's creating a bunch of files in the directory and everything else. And then there's our form, right? So it's starting in here. If we hit tab here, it's going to tab down to here. It's probably hard for you to see, but it's starting there, and that's the first one, and that's the second one, okay? So it's tabbing from there to there. And then we're going to put in some text here, hit submit. You entered hello class. Okay, so everything's running there, right? Now, what we did do, a few different things actually. So you can click on the submit button, right? But we also said there's other way to do that, right? We also had that, we put that ampersand S. Can I not read that, or did I accidentally get rid of that? Let's see what happened. Yeah, it's still there. It's just hard to see. So if I hit Alt, hold down the Alt key, hit S, and that's going to actually do the same thing as clicking on it, right? And then the other one that we did, and let me show you where that is. We did that one. We updated that one field. So that if you hit the enter key, yeah, the accept button on the form. We'll go back and look at that. When we update that accept button on the form, then that's the same thing as you just hit the enter key here. And then, so basically in this case, there's 3 different ways actually to execute this button. Is by clicking it or hitting the enter key, or we can use the Alt S key. Okay. And to close this, so what we'll do in some of the future assignments is we'll have exit buttons. It's a little better than having to click the X up here. It will perform the same function as clicking the X, but we'll usually, we'll create our forms. We have an exit button, so you click that to exit the application, right? And so we have that there. So what do I want to discuss next? Yeah, let's go back to the form. So if I click on this on the form side, we had this accept button. I just wanted to kind of review that. So this is that accept button, and this is when you hit the enter key, right? When we did the ampersand submit with the ampersand, that is basically for the Alt S, right? And then the other was by double clicking this, we did the event thing where we put the code in there, right? In here, right? And that's for the double click. That's for clicking the button. Okay. I think that's about it here. Has anybody got any questions about any of this? I hope, does this make sense? Is this something that's, achievable for you? You think I don't know if anybody's doing this real time with me, or you just watching. Just kind of want to make sure that this kind of makes sense. It takes time. This is something you just have to get used to doing. It's practice. Practice. So. Okay, looks like, it takes time, don't get frustrated. Okay, so questions where I got the code. So this morning I sent out an email. You should have received it. Did you receive that email? Did everybody receive an email? And on that email, let me bring that back up, that document. Oh, let me move it. Okay, here we go. So on this email, as far as the code's concerned, it's right here. I'm sorry. Yeah. So this is what it kind of looks like. This is what it's telling you to do. It's just showing you what it would look like for the most part. But the actual code is down here. I'm sorry. So basically, you just take and cut and paste this and put that in there. So I hope that helps. Yeah, a little confusing. I can understand that. That's a little confusing on where the code is. So that's right there. So here, what I think we're going to do on this. So first, let's, so if you've got GitHub desktop, hopefully you created this in your repository. And if you create it in this repository, now that we created this, we saved it. If we go to GitHub desktop now, okay, and so here's GitHub desktop. You can see, 43 files changed, right? Like, well, we didn't change those 43 files, right? But if we go look at, let me show you here. So if we go look, there's a whole bunch of files in here. So this is kind of when you create that app, when we ran that thing, it compiles it. All this stuff is put in here, right? So you have all these other directories and files, okay? Now, this is basically, once we execute it, that's why this got created, okay? So that's why it's showing up here. But what we can do, I think it'd make it easier. So basically, let me bring that up one more time. I don't want to get too far ahead, too fast here. So basically, if I go ahead and delete all of this, if I delete all of this, and I suggest you probably exit Visual Studio, delete these 3 directories here. If you delete those and then brought up Visual Studio, it'll recreate it, okay? If you have these files already here, it'll do it a lot quicker. But basically, there's no reason to remove these. I'm just letting you know, by removing these, and you could actually bring up Visual Studio again, and it would actually, it would be fine, okay? But it'll end up recreating these when you run it, right? But you no reason to remove these. You can just leave these here. So the problem for us are, just to make things simpler, is it's all in here. So you can go ahead and push this all to your repository, and everything would be fine. I could get it and it'll work. But this is just a lot of stuff for the simple little thing we did, right? So what we could actually do here to make our lives a lot easier, we go up here to repository and do repository settings, and then we do these ignore files, okay? And then in here, what we're going to do, I'm going to cut and paste this. It's actually pretty basic. I could have told you. So there was actually 3 directories there, right? We had that bin directory, we had that object directory, and then we had that vs.vs. Make sure they have the dot there. .vs, object, and bin. Okay? And so if we go ahead and put all of those in here, what it will do, it will ignore these. We're going to hit save here. And now we're just down to the basic files. It will keep that ignore, so it'll ignore those, okay? And basically, so this is going to make things a lot easier. And so this will always be there in all the other things, all your other projects. If you do that, so when you create your next app, it'll ignore those other ones. And so, this is a lot easier. And so, okay, now I know these are the ones that got, some of this did get automatically created. You didn't, but at least it's just 8 files, not 40 something files, right? Okay. So what we can do now is, so we finished this. So we want to check it in, right? So basically what we can do here is, do something like commit, let's see here, commit simple app, maybe when we start doing assignments, you do something, and you can put anything here, but you might as well put something somewhat descriptive. Commit lab 1. In this case, we're doing this simple app, right? And then so what we do here, and then you can put some more information in here, and it depends on what you're doing. And this is a commit to GitHub. And so, like, if you only did a partial, you might want to, say that, or, finished assignment or something, something like that, whatever, right? So then what do we do is we hit commit to main. Please tell me who you are, Ron. Oh, so yeah, this is my fault. Let me show you. So what we're going to want to do here on this, we're going to want to go ahead and do a couple commands here, and I'll show you how to do this. So take care of this. So once you commit it to main and click push origin, it should be good. You know, so you can see here, everything's zero change files. And let's go ahead, let me go to the repository. I'm going to go to my repository. Let's see what I have here. I have this, which Sandbox Chapter 2, and then here's the code, right? And like I said, you know, now you only got those 8 files instead of, if you don't put that git ignore, it's just going to throw that all out there, and that's fine. But you know, it's just taking up a lot of space, and you know, it makes things a lot more confusing in GitHub Desktop when you've got, you know, 40 plus files as opposed to 8, right? Just makes things a little easier. So has anybody been able to push that out to their repository, or things not quite set up for you yet to be able to do that? Okay, yeah, let me go. Okay, I'm going to go look. Hayden said he did. So let me go to his. And so I don't know. Yeah, I don't see that it got pushed out to your GitHub repository. So we might want to look at that. Oh, okay. Yeah, well, we're going to have to work on that because I'm going to, you know, you're going to have to turn in your assignment. Hayden just said he created a new repository, and, you know, that happens. You know, not that I've done the same thing before. Things weren't working out for me sometimes. I just created a new repository, but, you know, we're using this classroom environment, that GitHub Classroom, and so for me, because it makes yours as a private repository. So for me to be able to access yours, it has to be linked to the classroom. But you know, I'll work with Hayden on his. Anybody else? I don't think. Okay. Okay. All right. So you know, well, maybe later on today, I see, you know, a couple people haven't got things set up yet correctly. So let me. I'll work with them on that. So if anybody's, you know, if somebody's has some time available after, you know, noon, after a class is over, you know, maybe take a little lunch break, and after, you know, let's just say after 1 o'clock or later, you know, if you want to shoot me, you can shoot me an email now though. Shoot me an email saying, hey, you know, when you're available, and you know, I'll just send you another Teams meeting, or and just for one-on-one, and we can kind of go through any kind of problems you're having, and that, you know, that's for any of the students. So let me know on that. Okay, so I think the next thing we'll do. So what, you know, we've been going almost an hour here, I guess. Well, not an hour, about 40 minutes or so. So yeah, let's go ahead. This is kind of a good a good place to stop for a little break. So let's go ahead and come back at you know, 5 after 9, 9:05, and what we're going to do there is we're going to use that study guide that I sent, the email study guide, and we're going to go ahead and go through that first written test. Okay, so I'll see you all at 9:05. Okay. Just to continue forward here. If anybody has their mic on, please mute it.
Mute it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
still getting
I'm
some
still getting
back.
some back.
Hello.
Hello.
Yep.
Yeah.
Let me
Let me
get out of here
get
and
out
come
of here
back.
and come back.
So back here, we haven't done much in this file, but we do have the button dot, click. So the BTN submit here, you could have called it something different. This is what I called mine, kind of following the document we had. So the button submit, if you come back here, if you got this, you should have the name should be the same, right? So if you don't have this name here, the same as that one, then it's going to be an issue. Okay. And you always have to watch out, especially, early on, because you're learning this stuff, whenever you've cut and paste things, make sure you don't accidentally get rid of something you shouldn't. You have to have this beginning curly brace and ending curly brace. So, we just put this in between the two curly braces, right? That was the basic boilerplate that it created. So, if anybody's having problems, I'm fine with helping you. I enjoy helping people, so I enjoy helping students. So, just let me know, and we can arrange some time, and we can go through anything you're having problems with, even if some basic stuff. If you don't have your environment set up and you're having problems with that, I'll help you with that. If you're having problems with the code, I'll help you with that as well. Just send me an email. We'll arrange a time and go through whatever you need to go through. Okay. I know it takes time. This is a second day of second day of the class, and this stuff's new to almost everybody. So it's going to take time to get used to all this stuff, and there's a lot of little moving parts, right? A lot of different things that we do. So okay, so I'm gonna just go ahead and close this out for now. No, let me leave this open actually. So I'm gonna bring up the that other document, the study guide, right? And that was the one, how to design this. So real quick, let's just go through a few of these, and then we'll kind of come back. So customize the way Visual Studio operates, and its appearance and behavior. You use the options command from the toolbar, right? Tools menu. So let's just go take another look at that. So go down here, we go to options, right? At general, you got some general stuff. If you want to change your fonts and colors, you can do that here. And there's also this import and export settings, okay? Now, and the reason I'm bringing this up is just because it discusses this. And I think one of the questions, how to change your development environment has to do with import and export settings. Okay, not I don't know how important it is for you to really at this point to really know that, but it was one of the questions. Creating a new project, we just did create a new project, and then on the study guide, the third item is understanding controls and properties. We did a text box, we did a label, we did a button. Showed you how to do read only to make it non-editable. Let's see what else. This is the Windows Studio. Yeah, toolbox window. So you got your toolbox window here on the left. That's where you got your little controls that you can drag, or you double click them and they'll come over here as well, right? Common properties on the form. So, we changed the name property. We've changed the text property. We did that tab index. I don't think we did the tab stop, but when that tab stop is set to false, which I believe ours was, this property prevents a control from receiving focus through the tab key. Okay. Yeah, I think that tab stop was false for the the label, I believe. Here we go, kind of look. Oh, am I in the wrong place here? No, it's not even on there, is it? Yeah, it's not even on that label, which makes sense. Sorry. Yep. So this have tab stop as being true. So obviously, if you change this to false, this prevents a control from receiving focus through the tab key. Okay. We did the accept button, and that accept button, I believe that's on the form right at the top. So we have it, our accept button to button submit, and that's for basically when you hit your enter key. When you hit your enter key, it's going to submit the form. Right? That's a button submit. Then we have a cancel button property. We don't have a cancel button, but access key. So we did do the access key, right? So number 5 on that study guide, we did the access key. We did the ampersand submit. So we did the tab order, 2 different ways to do the tab order. We could do the tab index within the properties window. And then also we can go up here and do view tab order, right? That's the other way. Designing and aligning controls. Oh, here, that's one thing I didn't really show you. So one thing you can kind of do here too. So you come in here to your form, and I just select all of this. So everything's selected. If I use my arrow key now, you can see I can move this back and forth. All right? So you can change, you change multiple things. It depends, you just grab some things, right? So that'll stay the same over there, but this is moving, right? And then, oh yeah, select multiple. So you can also do a control, hold down your control key, hit shift. That'll select multiple things, right? So, and then to unselect it, you got to do control shift again to unselect. And then obviously you can, if you just click it without holding the control key, hit it one time, it's just going to move from one to the other, right? If you hold down your control key and click on it, all right? Okay. Align or size multiple controls using the format menu in a layout toolbar. Okay. All right, and so the Solution Explorer. So we know the Solutions Explorer is over here, the top. We have our Properties windows down here. And then we have our toolbox on the left-hand side. And here's our design, right? This is our forms design. And then this is the code, right? And like I was saying earlier, you need to make sure, because I've done this multiple times, if you double click this, it's going to be put this event over here. So when that happens, basically you kind of really want to come over here, come back to your design, make sure that this is highlighted. Click this over here in the properties menu. You got this little lightning bolt. Click that, and on this on-click event, just get rid of this, and that will take care of that. Sometimes you try to do things, but if you try to do things in the code like that, sometimes you can have some problems. It's just a funny one of those little quirks. And then obviously, if you got a little asterisk above above here anywhere, that's going to that means it's not saved, right? And you just hit Control S to save, and that'll save that, right? All right, so let's go ahead now. So what we're going to kind of do now is go over some of the basic C# concepts. But the 2 kinds of applications we're going to be building here, most of the stuff is going to be our web forms, but there's also console apps, right? And so and a lot of the stuff that they're going to go over here can work in either one. Okay, I mean these I shouldn't say that. These are things that are needed when you really start getting into the code and doing some real coding, right? You know, a lot of stuff when we're just clicking stuff and you know positioning stuff, you know, the only thing we did really real coding was we cut and paste that for that on click event, right? But you know, there's a lot of other, you know, there's a lot of different concepts that's you know needed to be able to you know create code for that, right? So the first thing I want to kind of go over here, you've got this net. You have a NetSpace namespace declaration, and so what a namespace is basically is so when you've got like these system type things you're importing, or let's just say that you're importing something from outside of you know your code because there's other like open source stuff and different things you can bring in to use, and it's important to have a namespace because like let's just say that you know you created a method or you know created a method called view or something. So if somebody else created that same method, you could have a namespace, what's called a namespace collision, because you know if you didn't use a namespace and you've got two different things, you know the C# programming language is going to have to just is going to kind of decide on which one to bring in, and it may not be the one you really wanted, right? So when you're using a namespace, it kind of controls that and prevents those namespace collisions. All right. So and also the next thing is a class declaration, and so this is how you define a class. You call a class, and this is the name of your class. In this specific instance, this is called program, just called program. You know, you could call it something other than that. You know, this is just your own made up names, right? That's a class definition there. And then we've got a main method. So a main method is an entry point into the application. So like when you execute even in a Windows Forms app, you hit the little green arrow and you know it's like I said it's building that application, and then it runs it. And when it runs it, it's going to come into this main method and it's going to start executing your code. Okay. Now for a console app, here's a basic structure for a console app. This is where you're doing a console.write line. Okay. And you're just writing out this line, hello world. Okay. So what I did here on all these examples, just in case you decide at some point you just want to, you know, copy this and put this in a file and, you know, try this stuff out. This is just for view purposes. You can't really it says copy code here. It's kind of a tease. And actually originally when I created this document, I just had the screenshot here, but then, you know, I'm sure that, you know, I didn't want to just tease you with the copy code because you can't really copy this code. So underneath of each of these screenshots, you've got the code. So if you can copy this, all right. And if you copy this is the same what's in here. Okay. And you don't have to do this. This is just, you know, just an example that, you know, if you got the time and you want to play around, you can do that. Okay. So a few different things. Also, we're using system here. So using system, and this line imports the system namespace, which contains fundamental classes such as the console that are commonly used in C# programs. Okay. And then we have our namespace being hello world, right? So then, like I was saying, so like if you've got a method in here, if you have a method in here and that method is you know, a name that's the same as a name in another file, when you use this namespace, that prevents those kind of collisions. Okay. You don't have to worry about that too much, but I just want to point that out. And then we have this class program defines the class, name program, and it must all C# programs must contain at least one class. Okay, and then here's your main method, and this is where programs begin its execution. Okay, so like I said, when you click that little green thing to start your application in the web form, you know it's going to build all of it, and after that, it's going to execute what's in the main method. You know, so if you create some other method outside of this main method, we'll be doing that. But if it doesn't get referenced in some way or another, it's not going to execute it. Okay. Comments in C#. So basically, this is a single line comment using 2 forward slashes, and then if you want to put a comment on multiple lines, you use the / asterisk and then the asterisk / to end it. Okay. So in C#, there's different data types. So when you're defining certain you'll have a variable, and then depends on what you're doing. You could have a string variable where maybe it's a name. You could have a number. So there's different ways you need to define that, right? And so for an integer is a 32-bit integer. And this is actually, I don't remember. I'd have to look. The number of digits in this integer is substantial, okay? But in this case, it's just, you're setting, here's an example where you're setting an age to 30, right? So you always, you just put the number here, right? 30. As opposed to a string, right? You have a sequence of characters. In this case, you're always gonna have to put the string within quotation marks, right? If you don't put this in quotation marks, it's not gonna compile. It's not gonna be happy, right? And then we have a Boolean, and what a Boolean is either true or false. So this is how you define it. You define it by just like this, okay? Bool, and in this case, this is a name that you're creating is active. And here, this is a name that you create. The string stuff is part of the language, right? The int, the string, the bool, this is all part of the language. Now, this is your variable name. This is user created. This is programmer created. In this case, call it age. Here it's a name, and here is active. Okay. Now, double are used for basically when you're using decimal places, right? So a double represents a double precision floating point number, okay? And this is how you would do that. You start it with double, and then here's your program created variable name, and then here is the value of that, right? And so when we do this first console app, we will go ahead and be doing this, okay? Here's a char. And a char is basically a represent of a Unicode character. In this case, you just have an A, but you can always represent other characters as well. Like a asterisk. There's a whole bunch. There's a whole big list of different Unicode special characters and everything else, right? And so, but there you have to use a special symbol on here. And we'll talk about this in the future. I'll show you the examples of this in the future. But for, in this case, a lot of times a char is just a single character, right? A char, and here's the user defined name as grade, right? Here we're declaring initializing variables. So, just exactly kind of what we're looking for. So basically, the difference between declaration and initialization. Declaration is just saying, in this case, you're just saying, I have a variable called number, and it's an int, right? But here, now you can do that all in one line, like we were looking at those examples above. We did these all on one line, right? So basically what you're doing here is a declaration, right? And an initialization all together, right? Now there's some cases where, a lot of cases you may be doing that, but there's some cases where maybe it's something that's going to change, right? And if it's something that's going to change, then you might just declare it, and then based on, let's just say it's a sum. Let's say instead of int, let's say the variable name here would be sum. Then let's say you have some other code that actually adds some numbers together, and then it's going to initialize it being the sum. Okay. But hopefully I didn't confuse you on that. But basically, declaration is just the saying, hey, I've got this variable and it's a type int. I'm not giving it a value. And then initialization, that's where you actually give it a value. So you've already got this number, and the C sharp, the compiler already knows that, hey, number is an int, and I assign it to 5, right? And here's ones where it's combined for a greeting of hello world. Okay. And then, just like I said, here's the code for that. You just wanted to cut and paste that and try that. You do need to get to a point where you just try a bunch of things. If something, especially just playing around. And that's why I was saying, it's a good idea. You can just create a sandbox, and you can put some different things there, try things. It breaks, you don't have to worry about it. You need to be, you need to go far it sometimes and really just try things out and see what works. And, that's the only way you're going to learn. You're going to learn by making mistakes. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to make a lot of mistakes. It's all a part of the learning process, right? Now, another thing is a constant, right? So whenever you've got a constant, you're basically, this is a number that's not changing. In this case, you're defining pi as this number, right? But besides that, there are, there's, other things you'd use a constant for, maybe like maybe an interest rate or something. There's assignment we're going to be doing console app assignments where, we're going to be using, I know at least one where we're going to be using a constant. So, we'll go ahead and see that here soon. Operators and expressions. So here, we can just look at, here's the basics, actually, the plus signs for addition, subtract sign for subtraction, the asterisk for multiplication, / for division, and this is modulus. And I won't go into this, maybe some, it depends on your math skills and that, what you remember about this from school. But, I'll go through this some other time, not today. I don't want to. But, just make sure that people understand modulus, and it's going to be beneficial on how it works within programming, even if you understand it, kind of how it works and how do you use it within programming, right? So it's basically the remainder, right? It's not, when you divide two numbers, there's a if there's not an equal, there's always a remainder. It's going to be 0 or greater, right? And so here's an example where you're defining integers, right? So you got an integer of 10, an integer of 3, and here's a sum where you got a plus b, okay? And here you're just doing a subtraction of a minus b. Here you're doing a multiplication, a product, a times b. Here you got a quotient. So what you're doing here, so this is kind of a special thing here. So we're creating this double because this thing is going to return a divided by b is going to return 3.333. So if you by using saying it's a double here, it will actually hold this value. If you just set an int, it's gonna be a whole number. So it's gonna actually truncate the others. This would actually, if you had this as an int, it would just return the number 3, because an integer is just gonna be whole numbers, right? It's not gonna return the .33. But if you make this a double, and a double is for floating point numbers, right? It's gonna return this 3.333. Okay. And a remainder. Okay. And then here's the code for that. Here's logical operators. Don't worry. I know this is a lot for you. Don't worry about understanding all this, but you've got this, you've got this guide, you've got this um, document. Plus, you can learn it other ways. You can search for other ways as far, and you got your books as well, right? So here's the logical operators. So logical operators return true or false. So a lot of times it's going to be on something that it's got to be able to return it true or false. In this case, you're actually using the words true or false. Another thing is not to get too ahead, but maybe it, is one equal to one? Is two equal to two? Right? You could do that as well. In this case, we're just doing a Boolean, and we define a Boolean A as true and a B as false. And so A and B returns false. And how that works is they both have to be true to return true, right? For an and, is A and B both true? No, B is false, so that's going to return false. Here's or. Is A or B true? Yes, A is true, right? And actually, in this case, in programming, and we'll go through this again later on a lot more, but in this case for this or, first it's going to check this first one. All right, A. So is A true? A is true. For an or, you just need either one. So it's not even going to check the second one, because once you've already fulfilled this, once you've already established, hey, this is true, it doesn't need to check here because you're using an or, so it doesn't even need to check the second one. So if this is true, A, it's going to return true. We'll talk about that later in the future, but basically, an or is A true or B true, right? So obviously, like I said, just, if A is false, right, that it's going to go check. It's going to have to go check to see if this is true. But if A is true, it's going to return true. And this okay. And what this one here is not A. So what this is saying is the opposite, right? This exclamation point says the opposite. So what's the opposite of true? The opposite of true is false. If you would have instead wrote this as exclamation point B, which is false, and that would be the opposite of false. This would return true. But in this case, we're saying not A. So what's the opposite of true is false. Okay. So these are called comparison operators. Okay. And here's a kind of a tip, because this is all programmers at some point make this mistake. I know I have. Sometimes using the equal sign, sometimes you'll end up, for equality, you end up accidentally using one equal sign instead of true. And what one equal sign does is basically initializes that variable, right? So this is assigning this number 5 to X, right? In this case, it's assigning the number 10 to Y. So the one equal signs is for assignment. Two equal signs is for equality, right? Is it equal to? All right. So this makes this can kind of make this kind of interesting, kind of. So actually, basically here you're saying is equal. So you're defining this variable that's a Boolean is equal, and you're saying assign what X equal Y. So does X equal Y? No, it's false. So you're assigning false to this variable. In this case, you're saying is X not equal to Y. So is X not equal to Y? That returns true because X is not equal to Y. So in this case, before we were looking at the not sign being the opposite, In this case, for equality, it's basically using, not equal, right? Not equal, okay? So is x not equal to y? This is your return true. Here, you're taking, you've got this variable. It's a Boolean. This your variable you created is greater than, and you're assigning that to what's equal to x greater than y. Is x greater than y? X is not greater than y, right? X is less than y. So is x greater than y returns false, and it's going to, so this will be false. So if you printed this out, this would be false. And then here is less than. So is x less than y? Yes, x is less than y. It's going to return true. And then here is x greater than or equal to y. That's going to return false. So let's just say if these were exactly the same number, right? If these were exactly the same number, these would both end up, I don't want to confuse you, but so is x greater than or equal to y? It's going to be false, right? Is x less than and equal to y? X is 5. Is it less than or equal to y? Yes. So it's going to turn true. So these are, some of the basic concepts. It's going to help you in your code. There's going to be a lot more, but this is just something to get started with. And every day we do something, we'll be using things that come directly out of here. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a 15-minute break. Come back at 10 o'clock, and we'll go ahead and go through a console app. And so actually, we're going to go through the first assignment in the lab. So you'll be able to work on that lab assignment. Okay. While we were on break here, I kind of look at that written test, and I know it's in a different order. Something else was on there, some answer I kind of didn't like, and so I kind of wasn't sure that things were in sync to what I expected, but I believe it is. So what we'll go ahead and do is, we'll create this console app, and then we'll come back after that and work on that written test. Okay. So here, this is the requirements for that console app. Write a console program that converts distance from miles to kilometers. Okay. So we want to declare a named constant. Okay. Named kilometers per mile, which holds the number of kilometers in a mile, which is 1.6. Okay. Then we want to prompt the user for a distance in miles. Okay, and then we want to display the distance in both kilometers and miles. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and work on that. So we're going to go ahead and kind of, I guess we'll just kind of follow this. It's called Lab 1 here, will be our name. So let's go ahead and, if you have Visual Studio open, you can. I'm reopening it again. So I closed mine, so I'm going to reopen mine. And so what we're going to do is we want to create a new project here. Okay. And then here, and actually I did want to kind of point out something, especially because I know that one of those questions in a written test. So it kind of asked you, when you create a new project, what are you wanting to select? And from, when you do the create new project, you actually these are templates, right? Search for a template. These are different templates. So when you create a new project, you're going to want to select a template. That's how you create a new project. And, so here's the different templates, right? Now, one thing I did want to point out, I pointed out earlier, but I just want to point out again, you've got console app in here with the C#, right? There's C#. And then here you've got console app, and this is Visual Basic. This second part, Linux, Mac, Windows, this is showing you the platforms, right? Linux machine, Mac, or Windows, and it's just showing you it's a console. So we don't want to do the Visual Basic one. We want to do the C# one. So you want to select this. We'll hit next. And our project name, let's go ahead and just call that Lab 1. And location. So this is where we want to go back to our, make sure that we're doing this in our repository, right? So I put this on my, and we'll go here, and I'm going to go chapter 2. And there's some stuff already in here, which is great. So let me just rename this something else. Okay. So we're going to just create, we're just grabbing the folder, chapter 2 folder. And there we go. So in our location, it should say it's in labs, lab, chapter 02, and then lab 1. Okay. And then we're going to hit next. We're going to use the .NET, hit create. Okay. This is kind of telling you, we can kind of go look at this real quick. We might as well. So it's just kind of telling you that use this new program style. In older versions, so you look at some older code, you might see stuff like this, right? And this is just, you didn't really have to put anything in here, okay? But that was, starting with the newer versions, you have to do it differently. So this is the new way to do it, right? So we're gonna do it like this, okay? So let's just get rid of that. All right. Bear with me for a minute here. So back to the requirements real quick. Let's just take another look so we didn't forget. So what we're going to do is we're going to want to, we have to build that, build it like it's supposed to be in the newer way, right? And then we're going to want to, once we do that, we're going to declare a name constant here, okay? All right. So we'll come back here again. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to use using. We have to do our namespace here, right? So we're going to be using system. And always has to end in a semicolon there, right? Using system, and then we're going to do namespace. And we'll call this miles to KM, hit enter. We want to put a curly brace like that, move that down there, right? And then here, what we'll go ahead and do is do internal class program. Actually, I think our namespace needs to be lab 1. Let me, I think this should be fine. Okay, and then program. And then under there, we're going to put another we're going to put another curly brace. And then here we're going to put static void main like this. This is the entry point into our application. And you can tell IntelliSense will automatic, it kind of does it. If you just, when you get to this and it's given a suggestion, you can just hit tab and it'll put it in there for you. Okay. All right. So there's that. And it didn't put in our ending, did it? So we got open, close, open, close. We didn't have it closed for the other one. So that's, that's another thing, it's going to happen a lot for you. You have to make sure when you've got an open, you've already got it closed. And that's why it's a good idea to obviously, use spacing and tabbing to line things up so that you know that here's this curly brace is aligned with this curly brace. Your internal class program, this curly brace is aligned with this curly brace. And then this curly brace is aligned with this curly brace. Okay. So the next thing we want to do here, let's go look at our stuff real quick again. So we want to do a name variable constant, right? And we want that to equal 1.6, correct? Okay. And then so whenever you're using the editor, if like here, it's, you got underlined in green, it's basically you're not using it yet. So it's just telling you that. We are going to use it though here, right? So next thing we want to do here is we want to do a double like this. And we want to do miles to kilometers, right? And that is going to be equal to this. I actually had to do something before this that I should have done. I apologize here. But before that, what we're going to really want to do here is we want to do a console. We need to get our value. So we're going to do a console.writeLine. Okay. You can choose it like that, write line. And then we want to do here, we want to do enter amount of what, of miles. And you always remember you have to put a semicolon at the end, right? So that's that. So then what we do here, we're going to do a double. Miles equal. And then here what we're going to do is, since when we're, what we're doing is we're prompting the user to enter the amount of miles, and that's what this will do. But when you do that, actually it comes back as a string. So we want to turn that string into a double, right? So to do that, we're going to do convert dot to double, just like that. And actually we just hit the tab key right here. That's what we want to do. That looks good to me. So we got miles now we got our miles, and we got that. We're going to be getting that from the console. This will be the message the user will see. They'll enter miles, and then it's going to do console read line to get the miles. Well, console read line to get the miles, and this is going to be actually this will be a string value, and we're going to convert this to a double and put it in this variable miles. Okay. And then we also defined this variable called kilometers per mile. And so then what we're wanting to do here is we're going to want to take miles and multiply that by our kilometers per mile. Okay. Next, what we're going to do. So then we're going to want to we want to write out our our answer, right? So to do that, what we're going to use is called a concept. It's called interpolation, and what that is basically you're using it's a way to put variables right into a line here. See how we did this? We just this is just a string that we put in here, right? But we have these variables, right? We have this variable. So, we want to put these variables into what we return. So the way we do that, okay, and this is just something you can see. Don't get confused about it. You'll learn as time goes on. We put this dollar sign, and then, okay, and then we're going to put in our quotation mark, and then we're going to do a curly brace, right? And in here, we're going to put in miles, okay? And then, well, we're going to be moving that all the way over there, miles, and then we're going to put a space there, and we're going to put in miles is the same as, then another curly brace, start curly brace, yep, start, and then we want to do this one right here. I'm going to end that one, and we're going to put in kilometers. Okay, and we'll put a period there, and we got that. And so if you're looking at this, we've got a little red, so we're missing something, right? Well, we have this open parentheses, we have to close. You always have to remember you have to close things, right? So we have to close that, and we have to put in a semicolon. Okay. Now, there's something else we'll have to do, but I'm going to show you how this is going to work. And I'm going to show you why it's going to be kind of a, it's not going to give us exactly the result we're looking for. And I'll show you, and we're going to make a change so that it will give us what we expect. So I'm going to just hit Control S to save this. And I'm going to then go, we're going to go up here and we're going to click this lab. And if everything is done right, it's going to pop open and it's going to say enter amount of miles. Okay. And so let's say it didn't have focus, didn't have my focus. So one thing, if you enter stuff that, that's going to be a problem, when we learn other, using other techniques, we're going to make sure, hey, we're going to verify that it's, you're actually entered a number and things like that. But for this simple stuff, we just have to make sure we enter it correctly. Okay. So I'm going to enter this, and then you kind of watch this window because see what's going to happen here. Okay. When I hit enter. Oh, actually that worked a little differently than I thought it was going to, but to automatically close. Okay, press any key to close this window. Okay. Sometimes maybe it's an older version, but a lot of times what it end up doing You know, this did print it, and then it had this. Please press any key to continue this window. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. But what I've had to do before is do this to prevent the console from closing immediately. Sometimes it can close immediately. So I do this like this, console dot write line. And here do press any key to exit. It might be a newer version of the .NET framework. I don't know. Press any key to exit. Bump, bump, bump. And then we're going to close this. We'll close that and put a semicolon. We're good there. And then from there, we're going to do console dot read key. I'll tell you what this does. We just hit tab. Actually hit tab twice there. Press any key to exit. So what basically this does is after it returns this, it's going to do this console.write line, and then it's going to say press any key to exit, and then you can just press any key. So a lot of times, yeah, and something's different maybe with the versions now, but it used to be where you have this console.write line. When this main method executed, it would come through here. It would do all this. It would, and once you put in your values, and hit enter, the window would just go away because it performed this last thing. It wrote that line, and then it just exited it, right? The program just exited. This here, basically, so after you put in your number, it shows the value, it would actually wait, and then it would have press any key, and this thing will sit here and it's going to just sit here and wait until you press the key. Okay, so let's just run this again. And we'll put in 40. And there. So it's a little cleaner. It still worked before, but it had big, long message here, right? But this, we put in 40. It says 40 miles is the same as 64 kilometers. Press any key to exit. You put your space bar, anything else. Well, yeah. Okay. So a pretty basic console app. And that's, basically taking, miles and miles and kilometers there, right? So any questions about that? I don't think I have the chat open, and somebody's been chatting me. Oh, the light bulb. The light bulb's just a suggestion. Light bulb's a suggestion. I see that question. Yeah, if you have an error, it's going to be red. You're going to see some red thing here. You're going to see got a little red squiggly there. Same thing as, change the name of this variable, and then we use it down here. Yeah, saying, I don't know what that is, right? So anything in here, anytime you put a variable like this in here, it's got to be, you have to have it defined. If you don't have it defined, it's not going to work. Okay. So a quick little review here, basically to the way the program is executed, it basically executes through the main method, right? And so in this case, we're doing a console app, but the same thing it pertains to other apps as well. But in here we're using a console app, and so what this console app does, it's basically writing a line, and then from there, we defined the miles, and basically whatever the user would put in the console, it's going to read that line, it's going to convert that to a double, and then it's going to store it in the variable miles. Here, and a lot of times, let me show you something. A lot of times it's kind of good idea, kind of best practices, is define like your constants and stuff like that up top. You know, you can keep them all together instead of different places. That way, they're all, you know, especially if you have multiple constants, you can kind of define them all up top like this, right? Just kind of a better way to do things. So, and actually a constant, you should define it like that as well, right? Let's make sure that still works. And sometimes you got to click it here multiple times for it to get focused for some reason. So press any key to exit. So I'm going to have to look at this. This is kind of a little different than it used to work. I don't know. Let's see what it says here. To automatically close, enable tools, options, debugging automatically closes this. Okay. Work on that later. So, yeah. The constant, you should always start out a constant like that. So, you know, it's kind of just a heads up, and, you know, for a programmer. So, hey, oh yeah, this is a constant value. A lot of times with a constant value, you know, I know some people do it differently, but, you know, usually uppercase, you know, this is a good way to do it. This is the way, you know, I prefer to do it. You know, use uppercase. Sometimes, you know, if it's just one small thing or something, if it's just one word, then you'll have to put these underscores. But if it's multiple, if you got multiple words, best, you know, this is kind of the preferred way that, you know, I've always used, and most people I know use as well. But so where were we? We basically went how we read the line, convert it to a double, put it in the variable. And here we're taking miles and we're doing a multiplication. We're multiplying miles by our constant that we have. And we're putting the results of that in this variable. Okay. So then when we get down to here, we have both our variables assigned a value, right? We have miles and miles to kilometers already assigned a value. And we're using this interpolation. That's what this is called when you're doing this like this. Well, you know, we'll discuss this more in the future. You use the curly braces, open and close curly braces, put your variables in here, right? You put your variables in here and it'll just, you know, convert that, the value, it'll put the value in there, right? And then here we're just doing a right line. This will read it until the thing exits. So. If you put it up, oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, you said that earlier. So yeah, so basically in this case, you can see we have a double here. So in this case, we actually we do this. So you're going to see we put in 40. In this case, you're not putting a double in here on that, right? It's not putting a decimal place or that in here, right? And we're just using this double right here, right? So it's only going to put it in here if there's actually if the double has if it has a decimal place, right? So it's only going to put it in if it's got a decimal place, right? Oh yeah, that'd be cool to make a calculator. Yep. Okay. Any other questions about this for right now? So I'm going to go ahead, and since we're here, did I save this? I'm going to Control S to make sure I saved it. Now, always make sure you save it. You know, you can do it different ways. You can do file, you know, save all, save this, right? To save it, or you can just hit Control S to save it. And then, so I'm going to want to go back here and do this again. Did I close GitHub Desktop? So as you can see, here's our files for that. And back here, just for fun, back to our repository settings. I'm just going to show this again, especially if someone didn't see the first time. So I'm gonna actually just copy this for now and get rid of this and hit save. And as you can see, there you got 79 files. 79 files for that, but it's not really necessary. This is including all the files when you build it, all this that goes on in running that application. It's going to save that all to that directory, and that's fine to have that in your directory. Don't get me wrong. But you know, you don't really have to submit all that to the repository, and it just makes your life easier, especially when you start doing a bunch of things and you've got more than one lab, and you know, it's always a good idea to check things in often so there's less confusion, you know. But in this case, you know, we can go ahead and get rid of all of that, right? We can get rid of all that. So just go back here, and we're putting in the bin and a / the object and a / and that visual .vs, right? And that was all those different. Let's go take a look. So here's that. Here's my lab. This is the one we just created. So just to review, so it's getting rid of all these, all right? It's getting rid of all of that, so we don't have to worry about all that, right? It still does, yeah, it still does also include project file in that, but yeah, it's fine. So, oh, no, what it's doing is oh, I know what it's doing. This is just the new stuff, lab 1. This lab 1 old, that's because I renamed that, so it's just picking that up. So it's going to go rename that. It's going to take care of all that for me. So let me go look at my repository here. Let's go look at my repository and how it is right now, just so people understand this. And you should make sure that, you know, you have a link to this so you can see your repository too, right? You know, and here, this should be the same for all you guys as well, right? But this is going to be your name, right? Yours is going to be different than mine, right? But it's going to be your name right here, right? All coursework - your name, right? But as you can see, lab, so if we went in here real quick, you can see lab, chapter 2. Remember, I renamed that lab 1 to old, so we can do what I wanted to do here. But, you know, that's not picked up yet, right? It's still local, right? It's still a local change. So once we, so let me go back here to our desktop, GitHub Desktop. Now it's going to go ahead and take care of this when we submit this. So in this case, we're going to do, commit lab 1, you know, but we're also renaming something as well. But so I'm going to hit this commit domain. That commits it. And even though it's not here, you just have to remember, just because I hit that commit, if we come back here and look at that, it's not here, right? It's not here. You can see initial commit, that's what I've done it to be creating this in the first place, right? So nothing changed. Nothing will change until you push origin, right? So you need to push this origin. And now everything's up to date. There's nothing, everything's, you know, everything that was here is gone. And we go back to, sometimes it might take a minute or two. But here, let me pull that up here. I lost that already. Let me refresh it. There you go. Commit lab 1 right there. We go to chapter 2. And then here's our, yeah, well, that's okay. That's because it had lab 1 and lab 1. Yeah, that's all right. But it just put these 3 files instead of all those, however many there were, a lot. So it's just a little cleaner. It makes things a lot confusing, a lot less confusing using that get ignore to ignore those. And I can bring this in, and basically when I bring this up, it'll actually take a minute, because if you already had all those files and you did submit those, or locally you'll still have those and you can bring it up. But for me, I'm going to have to go get this. So I'm going to bring this down. So I'm going to have to bring this down to my local PC, right? And when I do that, I'll open this up and I'll end up double clicking on this. This is your solution, and it'll come in there, and it's going to actually be slow because it's going to have to build all that stuff that it had before, right? It's going to build that all out. But just to let you know how that kind of works. Even though all those files aren't here, it actually is going to rebuild that. It's going to make those again, right? So, and for your purposes, the only thing, it just makes it a lot easier if you just go ahead and put those ignored ones in there, so you have a lot less files to deal with, a lot less confusing. So what time is it? About a little past 10:30. Okay. Yeah. So anybody needs some help after class and that, I can help you out. No problem. Anytime actually. I'm usually on weekends, this and that. Sometimes if I'm busy doing other things, I can't, always help you all the time. I'm not available 24/7, but I'm available a lot. Actually, like last night, I was doing work till 7 at night and that. So, I'm usually available pretty often. Yeah, if anybody has any problems. So if you don't see that push to origin, okay, Hayden says he can't see the push to origin. So let me bring up GitHub Desktop again. So you should, if you don't see that, go up. If you committed it and everything disappeared, if you go up here, see if it says push up here. See if it says push up here. Do you have that up there, Hayden? Where it says push? Instead where mine says fetch origin, if it says push up here. So take a look up there and see if you have it. If you do, click that. Any more questions? Okay, so let's try again. Sorry about the written test stuff. So let's go back and go through that again. Let's give that another try. All right. So we're back here. So what we're going to have to do is, especially since this is in different order for different people, and I realize that I wasn't really thinking about that. You'll have to probably go look for this one. For each one, go look for to create an access key. That will move the focus to the text box and go ahead and go find that on your, which question that is. Go ahead and fill that in. And then the next one here, to create a new Visual Studio project, what do you select from the new project dialog? Right. So here, let's just, we can go look real quick. Let me just, what do I have open? I think I pointed it out earlier, but let's just go look. So in this case, we're coming in here and I'm just going to create a new project. And like I said, recent, here it says recent project template. So these are the different templates. So basically to create a new project, you need to select a template, right? So that's the right answer for that one. The template. What is the name of Visual Studio window that contains controls that you can drag onto a form, right? So that's that toolbox, right? It's on the left-hand side all the time. Now, also, I did that study guide too. So, most of that's kind of a condensed version. It's, condensed version, it's pretty much what you need to answer a lot of these questions if for some reason, but a lot of this you can actually, in this case, you can actually go and try a lot of this stuff out to figure it out as you go. Which property of a text box lets you prevent the user from entering data into a control? So, and this was one we did too, right? And so this answer is actually read only, right? Entering into a control, read only. So we do that right. Toolbox, and then a template. We did that right. Okay, number 5. So obviously, I hope you're. I can't see the chat, but is everybody good at this point? Okay, so number 5 here is when you align a size group or selected controls, the changes are made relative to. So the answer to this is the primary control. When you align a size or size a group of selected controls, the changes are made relative to the primary control. Which key can a user press to activate the button? What key can a user press to activate the button that's set by the cancel button property on the form? To activate the button that's set. Oh yeah, that's the escape key. We didn't do that, but yep. So it's the escape key. Access keys. So access keys let the user activate control by. So we did that, right? That's where we put that ampersand before submit, right? So, so to access that, you'd use the Alt, right? Alt plus another key. Not control, but Alt plus the S. That's what we did for that submit, right? In Visual Studio, what command on the Tools menu can you use to change the development settings? So I kind of mentioned that when we were there. We really didn't, at this point it wasn't really didn't want to make things confusing, but the way you do that is the import and export settings. Okay, the text property of a control determines. What does the text property of a control determine? The text that's displayed in the form. So we all know that. So that was like, for all those different ones we did, right? So you got when we'll click on one of the button or the label or whatever, we put in the text property, we put the name that's displayed, right? Like I was saying before, we don't want to, when you have those at the top of the properties, always had that name. You never really, you don't want spaces in there. You only can really put spaces in something where you got the text property, and that's the name that's displayed on the form that, the names that are displayed that you'll see, right? So what form property do you use to activate a button control when the user presses the enter key? Okay, so if you remember that, we kind of did that. Isn't that the accept button property? I believe that's right. Two properties that are common to both forms and controls are, so two forms and controls. So forms, you're not going to be doing that. You're not going to be doing the tab index stuff. So that's out. You're not going to do the accept button. So all that's left is the name and text properties, right? Which control do you use to allow a user to enter some text? So this should be pretty straightforward here. It's obviously not a button. And like we said, whenever you got it read only, you're not going to be able to enter. You can't enter anything in a read only text box. And the reason to use a read only text box is, I guess I mentioned this earlier. Maybe you've got multiple fields that you're doing some kind of an equation, and you put the answer in a text box, but you usually always want to make those read only. Okay. So in this case, that's text box. What property of a form sets the title that's displayed in the form's title bar? What property of the form sets the title that's displayed in the form's title bar? So that one's text, right? What would you set the text property of a label to if you want the label to appear as shown below? With the letter N as the access key. Okay. So we did this one, right? This is where we had this submit and we had the ampersand. So you use the ampersand for your access keys. To select two or more controls, you can drag an outline around the controls while you're holding down the Alt key. You can hold down the Control key when you click on them. Hold down the Shift key. Hold down either the Shift or Control key when you click on them. Shift and Control key. So that was one where, and I think I showed you an example. If you hold down the Control and Shift key, you can click on each one of them. You can click on each one of those, and then they'll stay selected, right? If you just automatically do a mouse click on one of them, that's not gonna work, right? So you're gonna have to hold down the Shift and the Control key when you click on them, and then it'll select multiple ones. Okay. And number 16, to change the file name for a form property or solution, you can use the what? change the file name for a form, project, or solution, you use what? So in this case, having so many of these for the project, we did a lot of stuff with those properties for the form, right? But those properties don't pertain to a lot of these other things, right? So for the solution project or solution, you're going to do the solution explorer, right? Number 17. Well, it's not 17 on everybody's because I know it's in different order. To prevent a control from receiving the focus when the user presses the tab key, which of the control properties should you set to false? So I think I did show you that at the end there when we were kind of working on that form. And so on this one, it's not the tab index, it's a tab stop. Right? Tab index is the 0, 1, 2, 3, etc. Which order you want it to be. Okay. And then we got number 2, customize the way the Visual Studio works. What command do you select from the Tools menu? So if you remember that, we have different options, all right? So if we click on options to customize the way it works, so, you can change the font size, you can do different things as well, right? That's options, right? I believe that's correct. So the tab order determines the order in which the tabs in the form designer, no, that's not true. The controls on the form receive focus when the user presses the tab key. Okay. When you run a form after you've used the form designer to design it, but haven't added any code, the form can be compiled but not displayed. The form works, but none of the controls work. The buttons don't cause anything to happen, but otherwise the form works. And the last one is the form is displayed, but nothing works. So in this case, the buttons don't cause anything to happen, but otherwise the form works. Right? So you can view the form, but you click on the button, nothing's going to happen, right? So there's that one. Now we got the last one. To align 2 or more controls, after you've selected them, you can use the I don't think we really looked at both of these. I think we did. I think we did the format menu, but there's also layout toolbar buttons. I don't think we did that. Maybe we'll take a look at that tomorrow or something. So let's see how we did here. Oh, I missed one. So, well, you can't see the answers at this point, but your test has not been returned to you for review yet. So, I'll go ahead and figure out what that one was. I don't know which one it was, but I'll go ahead and review that. I'm gonna have to do something to make that possible, and I'll figure out which one was wrong, and I'll let you know. But 95.254 is not bad, so take that any day, right? So, is anybody else? Anybody got any questions about anything? So what I think we'll go ahead and do today. So I don't know where everybody's at with things, but I know a couple of you need some help with the the repositories and this and that. So why don't we go ahead? It's about 10:55. Why don't we go ahead and call it a day today? And in the future, I really want to try to get these really get these classes where we're spending all of our time and actually, but I know it's a lot to go through in that in such a short amount of time. So, but let's go ahead and we'll call it quits for today. And I'll go ahead and help out anybody who needs some help. Just send me a message, and I'll go ahead and we can work on it now or we can work on it later. But really like to if you do have a problem and you have the time, I'd really like to see if we can get it resolved today so you can move on. So go ahead and drop me a note, and we'll go from there. And so, besides that, I'll hope everybody's doing pretty good, and I will talk to you later. Talk to you tomorrow.